Marama tihei Mauri ora. Ko matariki tēnei te mātahi o te tau. Ko matariki tēnei e karama atu nei ki a koutou nau mai, haere mai, piki mai, kake mai. Ko te aka Mauri tēnei e me ona peka katoa e toro atu nei ngā ringa ki a koutou, kia nau mai, haere mai, piki mai, kake mai, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou. Tangi hia o tātou aitua, kua rūpeke atu ki tua o pai. Rātau, ko tai atu ki te hāhātanga o pipiri, ki te oki ngā tonutanga. Rātau ki rātau tātou ki a tātou te pito ora tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou. E te whānau, welcome to Matariki. Welcome to the time of Matariki, which started today, which was heralded today and finishes on what we call the 10th of July, te marama o Takurua, the month of winter. And one of the things at Council, here in Te Aka Mauri and at Council, is that we wanted to have people learn more about Matariki. So we created Matariki Tauira, inviting people who don't know anything about Te Ao Mauri, who don't know anything about Matariki, to come and learn about Matariki for themselves by looking at the various whetu. Today the star whetu that we'll be looking at is Matariki herself. Where did we get the information from? We got the information from our Pathfinder. Our team here from Te Aka Mauri have put together a Pathfinder which shows you where all the YouTube videos, all the web links, all of the books and documents that they have here in Te Aka Mauri that you can find a little bit more about Matariki. But today is all about Matariki, the whetu, Matariki the star, and of course for us to start Matariki Tauira, I'd like to call upon our director Te Aka Mauri, Laura Marshall, to come and talk to us a little bit about Te Aka Mauri and talk about her journey of study of Matariki. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koe.
Can everyone hear me okay? I have to admit, I'm normally walking up and down, so this is a little bit, I think we'll go. Thank you, Kenny. So, tēnā koutou, croeso, and that is welcome in Welsh. Ko Laura Marshall aho. Kai hotu Te Aka Mauri. So I'm privileged to be the Library Director of Te Aka Mauri. I'm also a disowned Welsh woman. My family are originally from Pontypridd, but unfortunately I can't sing, I have terrible pronunciation and I don't like poetry. Originally I'm from Auckland, however my husband was born and bred in Rotorua. Before I returned here, I was an owner of second-hand and rare bookstores, so I've always been in the book world. And before that, I was at university and I studied archaeology and history. Now this talk, as Kingi pointed out, is not so much about the whetu Matariki, but about what I have learned during my study journey, and it's been a very interesting journey. One of the first things I can share is that I have a newfound respect for the heritage team. And I think I made the correct choice to go into book selling and not research when I left university. After 25 years, it's been very tough to get back in the saddle, and from now on, after this enlightening experience, I'll stick to budgets and management. So for this talk, I've been asked to speak about the whetu Matariki. That's the individual star, not the cluster, but also about my study journey. I've had a long interest in stargazing. I've spent many nights, as most of you probably have, outside on a blanket, looking into the empty sky. I can tell you where Orion is. I can tell you about Sirius. I can tell you about the Milky Way and Venus. I can also tell you that I hold a deep appreciation and fascination for the complexities of Polynesian celestial navigation. But about Matariki, sadly, I know very little. So, I'll start at the beginning with a disclaimer. This is a very famous Latin disclaimer. I know that I know nothing, and that's from Socrates, and I thought it was appropriate since Matariki is also known as the Pleiades, and it was a Greek who coined that phrase. So, Matariki has a lot of names. Whetu 45, the Seven Sisters, or Twedris, which is the Celtic version. Harvin, which is Hindu. Alpuria, excuse me if I'm pronouncing this incorrectly, which is Middle Eastern. Chinese, and obviously the Greek Pallades, and Matariki. So it's an open star cluster. It's the nearest to the Earth. Most obvious to the naked eye. It contains over 500 stars. It's going to survive for another 250 million years. 7 stars are visible to the naked eye, or 9 depending on your eyesight and the pollution. So the cluster has been recorded for about 20,000 years in art. It's recorded by all groups, so the Celtics, my people, the Mesopotamians, and of course the Greeks. And its most common name is Pallades, except for here and all these places here. This was the first thing I learned. Matariki is used in a wide variety of places, so it is a very common name. Oh, oops, I've just turned off the screen. Oh, here we go. So, to start my journey, as I mentioned, I'm a rare book dealer, and I have an extensive collection of New Zealand and early Māori history. So I thought that this would be a real in the bag, super quick, knock it out in one weekend. So I went home on the weekend, went to my collection. Unfortunately, book dealers don't tend to collect for the same reasons as researchers. We collect for rarity, value, condition, edition. Content comes a bit further down the scale. But however, I thought with such an extensive collection, it rivals the size of the Don Stafford room, I'd be able to knock it out. So I started with one of the earliest European books written about New Zealand. This was all I found in it. With the stars, they are well acquainted and have names for a great many of them. 1807. The New Zealanders are close observers of the appearance of the heavens. 1835. And despite the fact that Cook came here for astronomy reasons, there was nothing in his logs or documents. And then finally, we came to Elston Best. So I did find something in here, but if you've ever read Elston Best, he's very condescending and it's pretty tough going. Although he did admit that Māori did know much more about the stars than the average man. So finally, after a lot of study, I finally started to learn something. So obviously the Māori use stars to interact with their environment, to plant, harvest, hunt and fish. It was a blend of both astronomy and astrology. A mix of robust science and spiritual components of equal importance. Māori developed a rich astronomical knowledge and practice called taia whetu. Mata whetu, to stargaze, the lay term, this is what we all do. But only the tauhanga kokoranga rangi were the experts. They could read the sky and deduce the clues that were crucial to helping people live successfully. Every main community had an astronomical expert. They also had a whare tauhanga kokorangi, a place of learning. They were learned people, they were scientists, and they used observations of the natural world. They were able to decipher the human world. However, the door to Matariki had still not opened, and until our cataloguer Shemi thankfully put this book in my hands by Dr. Rangi, now the true learning could begin. Dr. Rangi explains in his book, and it's fascinating, I advise you all to read it and see his lecture, how he obtained extensive knowledge on Matariki, and it's a fascinating story. He spoke about his ancestors who had reputations as witch doctors and astronomers. They were interviewed by this man, Elston Best, and a lot of their knowledge went into this, but they were never acknowledged in the book. To date, this book is still the most comprehensive record on Māori star astronomy. But even Elston Best was not satisfied. The data concerning Māori sky law is now exhausted, and this account must be closed. The knowledge gained by us of this subject is meagre and unsatisfactory, but it's too late to remedy the deficiency. And this was confirmed by my earlier findings. I cannot give some of our sacred history, as not an old priest now remains alive who has the power to perform the ceremonies to save me from the penalty of divulging the sacred words of the gods. This was recorded by John White in 1887. So apparently, Elston Best left Dr. Rangi's ancestors with a chart. And over the next 30 years, they authored their own 400-page book and added 1,000 stars to the chart, which they had not told him about. Dr. Rangi's grandfather held onto the manuscript for 40 years without opening it and then entrusted it to Dr. Rangi. Now my true journey could begin. So Matariki signals the Māori New Year. It's a time of renewal, celebration, and begins with the rising of the star cluster. It was greeted by laments for those who died and by women singing and posturing in dances. The event was marked by a festival, by feasting and universal joy. Parties of women faced the famous star group and greeted it with song and dance. And that again was from Elston Best 1922, that would have been shared by Rangatihi's ancestors with him. Dr. Rangi also explains the origins of Matariki, which are fascinating. Unlike the Greek myth, he's keen for us to know it's not 7 sisters, and not even all the whetu are female. He names 9 stars, and I've read that early explorers were amazed by the eyesight of Māori, and they could even see the satellites of Jupiter with the naked eye, so it's not surprising they could see the 9 stars. So the name of Matariki, the Mata o Tiariki, the eyes of the god. The god referred to is Tawhiri Matia, god of winds and weather. When Ranganui, the Sky Father, and Papa Tuanuku, the Earth Mother, were separated from their embrace by Tani, Tawhiri Matia was distraught, saddened and enraged. He tore the eyes out of his chest, crushed them into pieces and threw them upwards where they stuck on the chest of Rangi. And hence we have eyes of the god. In the Māori tradition, there were 9 stars, and the stars were both female and male. Now, I won't talk about any of the other stars because over the next 9 days, other presenters will tell you more about them. But finally, I was to learn something about Matariki. So obviously Matariki is the matriarch of the star cluster named after her. She signals reflection, hope, health and well-being. She was the guardian of the 8 stars. Matariki married Tahila. Rehua, the medicine man. They had 8 children and each has a bounty for Matariki. Matariki is viewed as an omen of good health and fortune. If the cluster, especially the individual Matariki star, was seen as high and bright in the night sky, it denoted good luck, health and well-being for those who observed her. If Matariki was bright, if you were sick or someone you knew was sick, it was a sign they would get better. If she is seen, goodwill and health will be bestowed upon the people. Because of this, it was very important for people to observe her. The Rangatihi shared a story with me written by Harry Danzy in which he spoke about his ancestors' childhood in the late 1880s of being taken by his grandparents to watch the Matariki, where the old people might wait up several nights awaiting for the appearance. When they did, the people would greet the stars with weeping and recounting the names of those who had died in the past. A small hangi was prepared and it was uncovered. And the steam would rise up into the heavens to feed the stars. It's within both whetu and Rehua and Matariki that knowledge of well-being and medicine exists. Both have the power to heal. If Matariki was seen in the sky when a patient was suffering from an illness, it was taken as a sign they would recover soon. The wizard doctor could revive a man if there were certain favourable conditions at the time. Thus, if the robin was to sing for the first time, just as the morning star was seen, if also Matariki was high in the sky and the dying man had a shivering fit, then with all these auspicious signs occurring, a certain invocation would bring back the departed soul. It was recorded in 1904. Matariki, the pathway of well-being and of man. So whetu and the stars obviously had an important part to play in healing. Disease was attributed to supernatural causes that had no natural cause. Ailments were treated by spiritual healing by the power of the karakia and mana of the tauhanga, and some required herbs as well. No distinction was made between spiritual healing and the use of herbs, they were part of the whole. Both had the same origin. Plants had a celestial ancestry, as did the knowledge of the tauhanga. However, again, we lacked knowledge. That we can estimate with a degree of accuracy their dexterity or versatility in preparing compounding drugs is impossible owing to the great secrecy with which the manipulations were carried out. Dr. Rangi also tells us, though, that how the stars were read was very important. Matariki should be read in combinations. I'm hoping over the next 9 days you'll hear from the other speakers about how these combinations affect things. If one star is brighter than the others, food from that source will be plentiful. But if the star was dim or missing, the outcomes represented by that star could have a negative effect for the new year. The moon was also important to the reading of Matariki. Whetu is the god of darkness, illness and disease, and the origin of all ailments that afflict the world. Because Matariki was used as a sign to determine the bounty of the year, it's extremely unlikely its observation and reading would have taken place during such a threatening time. However, the period leading up to the new moon was regarded as the most productive and fertile time of the month. This period begins with a 3 to 4 day segment, and this was the time to observe the rising of Matariki. It also gave you a 3 to 4 day window, so an opportunity of a clear night because it was so important. And of course there were many different myths and legends. If the stars of Matariki appeared to stand wide apart, then a warm and bountiful season would follow. But should they be seen close together, it betokened a cold season marked by scarcity. If they were indistinct and seen at a time of rising that they seemed to quiver or move, then a cold season would follow. It fell to the tauhanga kokorangi of the area to determine the meanings. And this was another interesting myth that I found. So Matariki and her daughters would journey across the sky each year to visit their tupuna wahine, Papatuanuku. During the visit, each of the stars would help Papatuanuku to prepare for the year to come, using their unique qualities or gifts to bring life force or energy to the different environments. And of course, spending time with their kuia. And the final myth that I'm going to share, and people have said to me they don't know where I got it from and they're not sure if they've ever heard it before, but it was fascinating. And they think it could be a Polynesian myth. Watch was kept on the western evening twilight for the appearance of the thin sickle of the new moon. This began the time of misrule, an in-between time akin to April Fool in which all contracts were null and void, including marriage contacts. Acts that would normally be unacceptable could not be punished. A slave could sleep with a queen and not be punished. With the coming of Christianity, the period of misrule disappeared. And that was from a book called Tata Arorangi, Māori Astrology. Thank you. And I would say if there's any questions, but because I'm only on a learning journey, there's no questions.
Just before we continue, just got to ask a quick question there. Laura, how has this, from somebody who just started the journey 2 minutes ago, right through to now, how has the journey been for you? How do you view Matariki now?
That's a very difficult question, Kenny, but a good question. It has many complexities. There's much to learn. It has great importance, and I think I have a lot to learn, and I'm looking forward to learning more. So I'm looking forward to the other speeches. So yeah, I hope that answered the question.
Well, tēnā koe, Laura, beautiful. I learned a few more things that I hadn't known before.
And hopefully a few things about me as well.
Yes. So with that, again, if you went to your website, to the Te Aka Mauri website, you'll see the Pathfinder, and the Pathfinder is on there, and the Pathfinder is what we use to track down information on Matariki. That's on the web, that's on YouTube, and that's in here in Te Aka Mauri. Don't forget tomorrow at 12:15, actually right through 12:15, from today up to the 10th of July, we'll have a different person coming in, as Laura said, talking about their whetu. So with that, Laura, thank you. I just think you're awesome. Thank you very much for coming, and we look forward to seeing you over the next 10 days. Kia ora tātou. Orera, kia whakairia ki te tapu, kia wātea ai te ara, kia turu ki whakataha ai, turu ki whakataha ai, haumie hui e tāiki. Tēnā tātou.